right, I'm reconvening the meeting of the St. Mary's County Board of Education at 1:58. Finally on our agenda, anticipation is high, is the recommended operating budget for fiscal year 2016.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the recommended operating budget for 2016. This is a presentation in 7 slides. It is followed by a compendium document, which is the executive summary to the budget, both of which will be moved over and active in board docs at the conclusion of the meeting, and we will be publishing both these slides as well as the executive summary of the budget on the St. Mary's County School System website under Superintendent Budget. Budget priorities for this year are the same that we have spoken about really since the beginning of the school year. We have to open that beautiful new school, Captain Walter Francis Duke Elementary. We spoke about redistricting students for this morning. And the budget that we built and present today is predicated on a recurring operating cost of $2 million. We'd originally put forth that opening the school would cost $3.3 million in staffing and materials. The budget that's proposed is that there will be a recurring cost of $2 million for the one-of staff that would be in the building. The other budget priority is healthcare costs, incremental increases that happen from year to year. Based on our projections for this year and as we carry them over into 2016, we have very conservatively put forth a $1 million increase for health care. We'll be able to better recognize that a little bit as we get toward the end of the year, whether or not that indeed is the appropriate placeholder. As of right now, that is the appropriate placeholder. And the last is negotiations. We are requesting in this budget an increase of $4 million to cover compensation for staff. As we have spoken about many times, our staff did not get a step increase last year, and as of last year they were 1 step behind. So currently every employee in the system is owed 2 steps, approximately $1.9 million per step. That's that. So, what are we going to be asking for? This year we have a total operating budget of $194,672,000. For next year we are asking for an increase of $7.1 million from our local funding agents. We forecast that we're going to see a state increase of just under $400,000. That's based on our enrollment of about 60 additional students. Federal, we're holding fast. We don't believe we're going to see any more money than we have historically seen from the federal government. And then our other resources, we're actually decreasing the amount of revenue about $500,000. And Ms. McCourt would be able to speak more specifically to that. Excuse me. That's due to the reclassification of student-paid field trips, rental of facilities, and other related revenues to the revolving fund, because federal and state tax dollars don't support that. So overall, we're looking from this year's operating budget of $194 for next year at $201, a change of $7 million. How does that break down? Looking at our reporting categories, the administrative category, that is really the superintendent's office, fiscal services, human resources, we're holding very constant, only a change of about $12,000. For mid-level administration, it is a bit misleading. It looks like we're cutting $1 million out of mid-level, but we're really not actually cutting $1 million out of mid-level. What we are doing is we're realigning the positions, and that goes back to the conversation that Mr. Clements had this morning with taking the Department of Technology and moving it from mid-level and putting it under operations, or in this case it's going to be operation of plant. Instructional salaries and wages, we're forecasting an increase of $2.1 million. Now that reflects not only new positions added for Duke, but this also has built into every single one of the categories our anticipated negotiation expenses. Textbooks and instructional supplies, about a $500,000 increase, and that's almost completely consumed by what we're going to be needing and required for the opening of Duke Elementary School. Other instructional costs up about $750,000, and that really is technology leasing costs moved from mid-level, moved over into other instructional costs, as it was not necessarily in the most logical reporting place. Special education, a $461,000 increase, and as we've talked this year, it's not only the increase of positions, as we see being added for Duke, but also for the cost of special education and out-of-county placements, as we've been tracking, and Ms. McCord has briefed us as we looked at mid-year. Student Services has a modest increase of $132,000, and that is, again, staff for Duke Elementary School. Excuse me. Student Services, right? Student Health Services is $61,000 again, that's staff for Duke Elementary School. Student Transportation actually shows a decrease of about $300,000, and that's really because we have built in the budget, excuse me, gas, diesel at $4 a gallon, and it currently is under $3 a gallon as we're paying for it this year, and we forecast for next year we put as a placeholder $3.50, and even so that's us a reduction of $300,000. When we get to the operation of plant, that shows the largest increase, but really that's just a realignment of the Office of Technology down into mid-level. It's also taking into copier rentals from other instructional costs and being put into operation of plant, and then increases for Duke Elementary School. Fixed charges, a $2 million increase. And that's pension, health insurance, and also Social Security increases. And then also with the new staff that we bring on for Duke, that's the other side of the salary. It's what they cost us for their supporting health insurance. So overall, we see, again, $194 million to $201, an increase of about $7 million. There's been a lot of conversations about maintenance of effort and a lot of statements that, you know, everything's above maintenance of effort, but let's keep in mind that maintenance of effort just says that we will spend exactly the same amount, we will be funded exactly the same amount as we were funded last year, predicated on your per pupil allocation or your allotment. As we have a small increase in overall enrollment of about 60 students, the county and the state are obligated to give us a very small increase of about $600,000. Maintenance of effort does not take into account, under any circumstance, inflation or incremental increases for fixed charges. Maintenance of effort does not take into account new instructional mandates such as PARCC or online assessments or any of the technology required for that. Maintenance of effort does not take into account the opening of new schools. And we are a county that is growing, and we are a county that will be building new schools, and we are a county that will be opening new schools, and that's a community effort, and of course it comes with it a community cost. And the last thing that maintenance of effort doesn't cover is any negotiated employee compensation. Maintenance of effort is predicated on paying people the exact same amount every single year. And that's not necessarily good business. So, we realize that this is a very tight economic time. We were in attendance to the county commissioners' report out in December of the revenues, and we know that property tax came in a little bit higher than they had anticipated, but income tax was substantially lower, and that they're working with a $2.5 million deficit in their current budget. We recognize that. So one thing that we have done within this budget is we have added as few positions as we possibly can to maintain service to students. So what you'll see when you go down with administration, we've stayed pretty consistent. Mid-level administration, you see a decrease, but that mid-level decrease is really moving down to the operation of plant where you see the increase. It's just the shifting of staff. Instructional instructional salaries and wages, that's where we see an increase, as well as special education, 1 bus attendant for student transportation, 1 nurse for health services, 1 position for student services. Overall, we're looking at 26 additional brand new FTEs for next year, and really they can all be tracked back to Duke. And in fact, if you look at Walter Francis Duke Elementary School, in this year, we have 3 positions that came on halfway through the year: a principal, a secretary, and a building service manager. So they're 0.5 funded in 2015, but they'll be fully realized in 2016. And as we built this budget, we said, what are the positions we can't move from someplace else? What are the positions we are going to have to actually go out on the street and hire? We're going to have to hire an assistant principal, a secretary, 4 specials teachers, 1 media specialist, 1 media assistant, 1 guidance counselor, 1 pre-K paraeducator, 4 K paraeducators, 0.2 ESOL teachers, a paraeducator to handle the in-school intervention center, 1 nurse, 3 special ed teachers, 1 special ed paraeducator, 1 assistant building service manager, 1 building service worker, 1 food service manager, 2, and 3 food service workers. So overall, we've said that we have to find at least 30 brand new positions for Duke. So where are we going to get the rest of the bodies for that building? We're going to go into all the other elementary, middle, and high schools, and we're going to reallocate 23 teaching positions. Now, in our original plan, we said that we'd be able to move 14 elementary teachers over to Duke because their children were moving over to Duke. So it makes sense you'd move them with. We're going to go out into middle and high school and find 9 more instructional positions. We're going to look across elementary, middle, and high and find 2 more instructional resource teacher positions. We are not going to fill a pupil personnel worker. So all the responsibilities for Duke Elementary School will be shouldered by the existing pupil personnel workers. We are not going to hire a speech-language pathologist. Instead, we are going to carry that across the current speech-language pathologists. And we are not going to hire another school psychologist. We're going to divvy up the work among the existing. So ultimately, those are 28 positions that originally we had talked about funding that we are holding in abeyance, and we're doing that because we realize that there just isn't money available. So again, our budget priorities, they're very simple. We have to open an elementary school. And although we originally said we needed 3.3, we believe we're going to be able to do it for 2. For healthcare costs, we believe because we have judiciously planned this year and we have set aside funds, we're only going to need $1 million for that increase. And no matter what, we have to invest money in our greatest resource, which is people. So we're asking for $4 million so that we can negotiate in good faith with all 3 of our units. So that is my entire budget presentation. What you will find is that related to what was posted is the actual executive summary. We've gone about it a different way than we had in the past, where we'd have a lot of narrative about the money being moved to this, to that, to this, to annualize and what have you. The executive summary is directly related to the big binders that you have that gives all the information, and it gives it by object and sub-object. The goal is to, as we go through our conversations, as we make changes, we will make changes back to the executive summary, and at the end of it, we're going to have a document that completely matches up with all the numbers being the exact same. If you would have gone online and taken a look at the budget in brief last year, it stayed a static document even as we went through the multiple iterations of the budget, and then we went through all of the challenges that we had in the spring. So that budget in brief was fairly misleading. The executive summary will be a dynamic document. It'll be very searchable, and it'll be available to everybody. And it really breaks out the information by expense by category, expense by program, and expense by position. So it lets you see the positions. So at this point, I would like to call it Ms. Tammy McCourt and recognize Ms. Tammy McCourt and all of Fiscal Services for the just immense amount of work that they did to completely reformat and reconsider the entire presentation of budget. And she, working with me, which is not, it is not an easy thing. working with me, has gone back and done just a fantastic job. And Kim Sparshot in particular, who formats and reformats, and I say, well, what about this header? Well, what about this? She's very gracious. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. McCourt so she can kind of walk you through the document. Ms. McCourt.
I do too.
So each of you were provided a budget supplemental detail binder. Within the front of that binder is the budget document that will be actually published on our website as soon as we finish up here. And then within the tabs of the document are all the supplemental details. So we asked each of the departments, don't just look at last year's number and plug that number in for next year. We want all the details to support that. So we called this a modified zero-based budgeting concept. You have all of those details within this document. So for example, informational technology actually asked for a $500,000 increase approximately for computer software maintenance. You'll have all the details of that. It's going to A, B, C, D, E. We reformatted this document to make it very user-friendly, easy read for citizens. Within the front part of the document is the executive summary. So if the only thing you can do as a citizen is read pages 1 through 17, you'll have a really good grasp of our school system and where the money is going to. We've shared who our Board of Education is, the superintendent's budget message, exactly what the priorities were just laid out, the organizational chart. We've also included other statistics and information about the school system, the district profile to include the number of students per grade level, the number of schools that we have. We've included the organizational goals. We've included the school listing along with a school map, location addresses, and school principal names. The budget explanation so that you have a good idea how to read the document. Within the financial summary, we've included this in the very front of the document at a very high level summarized version. And then if I can direct you to, that entire first section is what I'm referring to as the executive summary. If I can refer you to page 25 of your document, that's when you'll start seeing the details. For every category, and these categories are dictated by MSDE, we've provided a very high-level summary. Within those summary pages are the details of every program within that category. So for example, the category of administration includes the Board of Education, Executive Administration, the Superintendent's Office, Fiscal Services, Purchasing, Information Technology Services, and Human Resources. So within the category of administration, $2.3 million is going to salaries, $340,000 to contracted services, $214,000 to supplies and materials, and $123,000 towards other charges. And this ties back to the presentation that you saw earlier, 27 positions within the administration category. Going on to the next page within this document, then you'll see more details just for the Board of Education, and then for every program thereafter. All the details to support this narrative is within your budget binder. I'm getting smiles, so that's great.
Fantastic. Sorry. We've not ever had this level of detail before without taking our own notes to indicate why categories have gone up or down or whatever. I'm really struck by this.
I highly encourage you to read this and ask many questions. I anticipate many questions. Mm-hmm. By all means, you, the citizens, call me, email me. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
May I ask just one question? Earlier, you talked about moving IT under supporting services. And I know we've done that, but here you're showing IT under administration, so...
There is one small program within administration, and that's for the director and just his general supplies and such that has to, under MSDE program, fall under administration.
Okay,
All of his technicians have been moved to operations.
great, thank you.
You can actually, so in that, you can see that, just page, what page, page. You can actually see, this is what remains under administration is, and the way they're laid out is this is informational technology services under the category of administration, and that's the breakout. And then you have, in your books as well, even, you have object and then you also have sub-object. And the reason why it's done like that is, first of all, because it's transparent. But then second of all, if you have a question about something and you want an audit trail run on something, you do it by object and sub-object. So if you have a specific question about something, all you have to do is provide to Ms. McCord or to me the sub-object 4-digit number that you're interested in, and we'll run the query for you, and we'll provide every single thing that was purchased under that, or encumbered and or spent under that particular line.
Fantastic.
That concludes our entire formal show. The goal is to have this information out for public consumption. We would like to work together to perhaps find a work session time. I know we're still in the middle of trying to firm that up between this time and the next board meeting. The next board meeting, we will bring back a presentation on the budget and where it stands as we work through the process, and any additional information that you believe that we need to bring out and formally present, we will do so. Then we have the February public hearing, and then ultimately going towards the end of February for the conclusion and forwarding to the Board of County Commissioners. So, thank you.
Any comments, Mrs. Allen?
No, you answered my questions, and I just need to be able to sit down and wade through. I guess I do have one question, and that is GCEI. That's about $250,000 plus for us. There's great concern as to whether or not that's going to be able to be funded in the coming year's budget at the state level. GCEI is the Geographic Cost of Education Index. And 80% of the students in the state are in the 12, 13 school systems that receive that money. For us, $250,000 plus is a big deal. I think Prince George's,
$250,000
Prince George's County, I believe it's 40 million.
Yeah, they were talking this morning about that.
So, GCEI is in here, and,
Right.
okay.
Historically, we've received the state aid numbers in December. We still have not received them.
Yeah.
So the great news is we'll have an opportunity to bring this back to you as we gather more information and get things firmed up from our state funding agents and from the federal government as well.
The governor's budget is due a week from today, correct? At least we'll have some idea.
By the end of next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Washington?
This is very good, it's clear, and it's transparent. And it's simple. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mrs. McCoy, for spending numerous hours with your staff working on this with Mr. Smith. Thank you.
She was a very patient teacher. And the pages have lots of white space, so you can, you can do your questions and write things right in it. As I go through it, I'm constantly writing. That's one of the things. We talked about whether we should push it together and not have the white space, but we're like, we'll let people have the white space and actually write things as they need to. And it's not even printed in color, so, how austere are we? Thank you.
I've been a little bit as an advantage because I think since day one, meeting with Mr. Smith and then a supplemental meeting with Mrs. McCourt, they've kind of outlined what they were heading to and what the plan was. I think it's terrific. It is basically a variance analysis for every single account that the school system has. So any question that anyone has between last year and this year, if, in the notes column on the far right-hand side, it's explaining exactly why. So, I mean, it's fantastic. I can't say that in my tenure in this county, I've ever seen the priorities laid out as to why what the money that was asked for from the county commissioners year over year, what it was actually going to be used for. And I think this is great because that's what everyone wants to know.
Mhm.
So, great job. And I know, Mrs. McCourt, how many hours you spent on this. So I really appreciate it. So,
I found that it's very easy to follow, and I too, like Karen, was able to look at some of it ahead of time, but I also am really glad that you are putting it out on the website for the public to be able to access. And I think that will alleviate a lot of speculation or questions.
Mhm.
And that people can go through and see really where their money is being spent.
Right.
So thank you for going through and making it easy.
Mrs. Crosby?
Well, in the short time I've had it, it looks good to me. Somebody said to look for things that go like this, not things that go like that. And things that do go like that. Good job, Mrs. McCourt. Good job, Mr. Smith.
Trust through transparency. And you'll see that one of the, we did put in there the Vision 2020 as we go through this year. We started this year talking about and having worked with Dr. Moore to come up with the logo for our ANS meetings at the very beginning of the year, because we realized that 15 is going to be a tough year, and 16 stacked up to probably be a difficult year too. But we have a long-term commitment to each other and to our students, and so we really need to be planning, as you've referenced when we were talking about technology services. You need to have minimally a 5-year plan, and I will say I have to applaud Mr. Clements and Supporting Services, because they really do operate with that mindset, and I'm sure that the Department of Technology is going to fall right into that group, and it'll be exceptional. So look at us today, and just wait and look at us tomorrow. So thank you.
Oops, sorry guys. Okay, and with that, I have 2 quick announcements. There is the redistricting public hearing on Tuesday, January 27th at 5:30 in this room, correct?
Yes.
And then our next regularly scheduled board meeting is going to be on Thursday, January 29th at 5:30. The time was moved from Wednesday to Thursday due to another scheduling conflict. Okay? So, and finally, we have an additional executive session scheduled for more personnel issues. So I would like a motion to move to executive session.
I move we enter into executive session for the purpose of personnel under Maryland Local Government Code, Article Section 9-512A1.
All those, or I need a second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And off we go. I have to bounce the gavel again. Maybe it's